Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you at the Plenary Hall. This is the day 2 of the conference here at the India Smart Utility Week 2021. My name is Aishwarya Singh, and the thematic session 4 is titled Energy Storage Systems, Business Models and Regulations, which we're all going to be a part of. This is a 2 hours long session. Every speaker is requested to speak for about 7 minutes. Let me begin, ladies and gentlemen, by introducing our esteemed chair, Dr. P.C. Methani, currently working as Director in the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. He's advisor to the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India. And during his professional career, he has worked on different aspects of renewable energy programs and policies. Dr. Methani was visiting fellow with TERI for a year in 2006 and also visiting faculty at TERI University in 2013. And he has contributed immensely to many papers and articles and has even authored a book, Renewable Energy in the Global Context. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Let me now go on to introducing our moderator of this session, Dr. Rahul Balavalkar, who leads the Emerging Technologies and Markets practice for customized energy solutions with focus on energy storage, renewables, demand response, and smart grid technologies, as well as international markets. His research and consulting activities have covered complete range of smart grid demand response and energy storage technologies. Let me introduce you to our theme presenter, Dr. Ramaswamy Murugan, who is currently working as a professor of physics from 2010. Earlier, he worked as a director, UPSC DST, Government of Puducherry, and associate professor in PEC Puducherry. He had the privilege of working with Professor John B. Kurana, who's a Nobel laureate, and Professor Wepner in developing high energy density batteries. Warm welcome to you, Mr. Murugan. Let me now welcome Dr. Amy Rose, who is a member of the Grid Systems Group in the Strategic Energy Analysis Center. Her expertise include power sector planning and production cost modeling, regional power pools, and grid integration of renewable energy. Her key areas of research interests are energy policy decision support tools to inform power sector policy and regulatory decisions, energy and development in the field of international energy policy, and market analysis and international best practices for regional power sector planning and operations. Warm welcome, ma'am. Let me now, ladies and gentlemen, introduce you to Mr. Sareen Sundar, who is a staff scientist with the CTO's office at Applied Materials India. He's an innovator and technologist who has rich and diverse experience of over 25 years in innovating and executing successful R&D programs in national research centers in India and leading universities in Germany and the US. We have with us on the panel Dr. Nilesh Kane, who is an additional general manager with Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited. He's an experienced professional with over 24 years of dynamic experience in electrical operations and technology, ranging from conventional to non-conventional sources of energy, battery energy storage systems, reactive power management, member of ETD 16 Committee of BIS, BEE Certified EA, Convener Innovation Council, Tata Power DTL. Warm welcome, Mr. Kane. Let me now introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, to Dr. Rashi Gupta. Dr. Rashi Gupta, fondly known as Battery Wali of India, is the pioneer of manufacturing of advanced lithium batteries in India, along with the world's smartest lithium battery. She is the founder and managing director of Vision Mechatronics Private Limited, leading it towards a name to reckon for in the field of robotics, renewable energy, and energy storage. She's a woman entrepreneur who has been fearless and ferocious in creating a brand for herself and the company in these male-dominated fields. Welcome, ma'am. Let me introduce you to Mr. Shantanu Jaiswal, and he is the head of India research at Bloomberg New Energy Finance, is based in New Delhi, and leads a team responsible for producing policy, economic, business, and investment analysis in the power and transport industries. From primary data collection to producing long-term scenario analysis, he's also involved in bespoke consultancy projects in India and neighboring countries. We have with us, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Matthew Pray, who is International Relations Officer at the European Commission, Directorate General for Energy, where he deals with energy relations between the EU and India, Japan, Australia, as well as with the international dimension of the EU strategy for liquefied natural gas. In his previous position at the Directorate General for Energy, he managed European programs in renewable energy and smart grid technologies. Let me introduce you to our next speaker, Ms. Mani Kurana, Senior Energy Specialist with the World Bank, working for over 13 years in the World Bank and leading investment projects and analytical activities across the energy sector value chain. She has been leading the bank's power sector engagement in various states in India. She has co-authored many World Bank studies, including a study on financial performance of India's power sector beyond crisis. Warm welcome. We have with us Mr. Kondala Rao Bavisetti, who has over 15 years of experience in providing advanced technical expertise to a large number of generation, transmission, distribution, and industrial companies around the world by utilizing his knowledge of software, power systems, power economics, electrical power engineering, optimization techniques, database, and different power system tools. Warm welcome. We have with us Mr. Naveen Nagpal, who is the GM for renewables with BSES Rajani Power Limited, an experienced techno-commercial professional with more than 13 years of experience in the power sector. He has worked towards managing different aspects of the extra high voltage transmission projects and currently looking after techno-commercial aspects of grid integration of rooftop solar PV system, BSS, and new initiatives. We have with us Dr. Jyoti K Parikh, Executive Director of Integrated Research and Action for Development, which is IRADE, New Delhi. She is a member of the Prime Minister's Council on Climate Change India and is a recipient of Nobel Peace Prize awarded to IPCC authors in 2007. And she served as the Senior Professor and Acting Director of Indira Gandhi Institute of Development Research, Mumbai, International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis, Austria, and Planning Commission as Senior Energy Consultant at New Delhi. We have with us Mr. Patrick Clarence, Secretary General, European Association for Storage of Energy. Now, since 1996, he has worked as a consultant for a private company specializing in European affairs in Brussels. In his capacity as Brussels representative of different European associations, he has been involved in the climate and energy field since 2003. He's managed the EASE office in Brussels as Secretary General since its establishment in September 2011. And since then, EASE has grown from the initial 13 founding members to almost 40. Warm welcome, sir. With that, I'm now going to hand over the proceedings of this very, very important session to Dr. Rahul Valavalkar, our moderator. Sir, please take it away. Dr. Rahul Valavalkar, are you there, sir? Or may I request Dr. Methani, our chair, to intervene until then? I think Dr. Rahul Valavalkar is facing a technical glitch. We will resolve that. Until then, I'm going to request Dr. Methani to kindly take over the proceedings.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am. And it's really my pleasure and privilege to be in this panel, which is really distinguished in many ways. Not only it brought the Indian experience, but global experience together. Bilateral, multilaterals, I could see Mani here from the World Bank. He will come with the different perspective. Mr. Patrick is there, European perspective. Rashi, she don't require any introduction. She is well known, and all distinguished panelists are here. Just by way of introduction, storage has come to the center of action. Anything to decarbonize the globe will depend upon how fast storage technologies are developed as well as mainstreamed in our energy systems. Globally, the movement is going on, as you pretty well witness it. Specifically in the context of India, if you see that our ambitious targets for renewable energy mainstreaming are contingent upon how fast storage technologies develop. We have plans to reach 175,000 megawatts by 2022, and again 450,000 megawatts by 2030. Fully aware that without storage, this is not going to happen, or this is not possible. Renewable have different kind of intermittencies, and it requires grid augmentation as well as storage at different levels. We have been making our beginning. Two fronts. One is that to create a storage ecosystem within the country. A specific program has been developed, and a mission for a storage mission, which is anchored by the Niti Aayog, is already under implementation. In ministry, we have been working on making renewable energy steady power for all the way, and different kind of tenders which have come recently also, either it is solar, wind with storage. They are just indication of the way country is moving ahead. Apart from that, storage is going to transform our mobility also. And over the period, particularly in metros, every state is coming with specific point of some kind of recommendations, how fast automobile industry could develop and go for the electric vehicles or electric mobility. And storage, without development in the storage technology, that is not going to happen. So this platform brings a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, and particularly I'll request panelists to focus on 3 points. which are important for everyone. Number one, where we are now. What are the likely scenes within next 5 years and next 10 years? Second, which sectors needs to be looked into beyond what exactly going business as usual? To be very precise, that whether storage only implies battery storage, because there are other facets of the battery chemistry beyond that also, like pump hydro is there. Hydrogen is another candidate where storage is being seen, where the decarbonization of hard to abate kind of industries, particularly fertilizer sector, petrochemicals, and even for transport purposes, we'll be looking hydrogen as a storage medium and thereafter use it. So after having your presentation on these three accounts, that what the technological trends, what kind of techno-economic progress we are looking at, and what is the takeaway for India as well as globally, both ways. So I will stop it here. And before session started, I had a conversation with Mr. Patrick, and he mentioned that he has some other engagements. So to invite Mr. Patrick Clemens, I don't know whether I pronounce well or not, Secretary General, European Association of Storage of Energy. So welcome, Mr. Patrick, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mehdani. Thank you very much for the invitation. Also, I will try to share my screen so that you can see it. Give me a second so that I get the right screen selected and share screen. Sorry, I'm working on it. I'm not an IT engineer and take a bit more time to sort out the right screen. I think it's this one. Share. You should now be able to see my screen and my presentation. Is this correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning for the Europeans. I'm very happy and thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this very esteemed panel and session. I think it's a very interesting session, and as was said, we have no other way than using energy storage if we want to harness the renewable energy sources. I was asked to make a keynote speech, and I will therefore maybe bring some thoughts which are less technical and also a bit broader. If you look at EASE is a European association, and I will see why I cannot, now I can change my slide, which has a lot of members. It's the whole value chain basically. It's from research centers, component suppliers, equipment suppliers, utilities, project developers, distribution system operators, transmission system operators, consultants, everyone is in. It's really the whole chain which is coming together. It has an added value that we come with a strong opinion, but it's challenging sometimes to find the right reply, let's say, on ownership between utilities and transmission system operators who should own storage. So there are a lot of questions which are quite interesting to play with. I believe that how the society worked in the past is not a society for the future. It will not work this way. This is what we mainly looked at: human capital and financial capital. And then we added to this a bit raw materials as a source, but that's it. We never looked at it raw material, where it comes from, what it means. And I believe that nature needs to be an important factor in future. So to have human capital, financial capital, and also then the natural capital. Then the natural capital, which I provide as what we take out of the planet and what we dump into the planet. And obviously what we dump into the planet, what we throw into the planet, must be limited by the possibilities of the planet to heal itself. If we go beyond this, we will not have a sustainable world and a sustainable planet. And therefore, I believe we need to move away from fossil fuels, because we have seen that the emissions which are going on now, the planet cannot heal itself on this. We don't manage for the moment to do this, and we will not be able to do it. But on the other side, we want to continue to use electricity. And electricity is crucial if you want to lift people out of poverty. So we need to guarantee the electricity supply. We cannot go to intermittency of electricity supply, which will not allow for industry to strive and people to get out of poverty. So we need, therefore, to keep our way of living and having cheap and reliable electricity. So it is not us to adapt, it is the technology to adapt, in order for us to continue our way of life and to continue using electricity when we need it. Which brings me to the point that on one side, we need to harvest renewable energy sources. On the other side, we need to make this electricity we harvest compatible with our way of living and available and cheap, affordable. And this is where storage kicks in, and this is the missing building block, the Lego block which we have here, which will allow for this to happen. So how will this happen? It is basically storage, as it was said in the introduction, is versatile. It is on one side for sure electricity in, electricity out, but it is also electricity in and electric vehicles and hydrogen for longer term seasonal storage and heat for heating and cold, which is not on this slide. And we will also see that you will have heat storage and cold storage, which is very efficient and very cheap. So you have a lot of different technologies which will work together, having a lot of different applications and over different time frames, because we don't need to balance only in minutes the system, we need to balance it in hours, we need to balance it in days, in months, and even seasons, where the windy seasons and the sunny seasons will, to be stored, the energy will be stored for the other seasons where it's needed. And this is what we see in the future. On one side, we see the prices going down, dramatically going down. It's on the left-hand side, as well for the renewable energy sources, or the main used ones, as well as for batteries, as also one of the biggest growing energy storage sector. But on the other side, you see in Europe, and this is in 2021, we have a European market monitoring for energy storage, which you can find on our webpage. There is a huge growth in this year for front of the meter storage. So this is the biggest segment which will grow. And why is this? Because we saw with the pandemic, when the industry and the demand were lower for some periods and renewables were providing a lot of electricity in percentage compared to before, that we have a grid which needs to cope more with variable renewable energy sources in absolute percentages. And therefore, we need to have the system reliant to deal with it. And that's why storage is kicked in so much, going from 0.6 gigawatt hours 6 years ago to this year, it is 10, 11 times as big as it used to be. So it's a huge evolution, and it's really shown that the energy system with intermittent energies cannot cope without the balancing power of energy storage. So where will this go? We see that in the front of the meter, the growth comes because there are new products. Fast reserve in Italy is a new product. Dynamic containment in the UK is a new grid product in order to adapt to the changing needs of the grid, which is moving away from a big centralized grid. So we need new products, and they should be tendered on the market. We see commercial industrial applications, agriculture, public building, all the rest. And behind the meter, we see more and more entities in Europe, at least, who have the PV and the storage to be self-sufficient. We see the emergence of energy communities who generate, store, and consume their energy. So this is a huge evolution we see. I will give some short examples because time is flying. This is one of the examples in France where we had 25 megawatt hours of lithium-ion batteries have been put down. It's mainly for system services, primary reserve frequency containment reserve, but it is also looking at other grid stabilities and other effects in the system. We see that even farms, they are starting to use storage. They store their heat, they store their cold, they store their electricity in PV. In this specific case, it was 50 kilowatt rooftop solar systems, where they're coupled with 60 kilowatt hours of redox flow batteries and a battery management system, and they managed to get their energy done and produced by themselves. And the next example I wanted to give, the last one, is that it's also on islands and remote systems, so it can be physical islands or energy islands. One of our members, EDF, has an isolated village where they produce also hydrogen for longer term storage. So they're tackling both batteries and hydrogen production to balance short-term and longer-term storage, and therefore a balancing of their generation. So it is an autonomous village which is using longer-term and shorter-term storage. What does it mean for India? In India, we see, and thanks to the Indian Energy Storage Association Alliance, you see that the projection is huge. In 2027, so the next 6 years, you see about 230 gigawatt hours, which is the potential in India. It is a huge demand which will also come to India and which will electrify, which will make remote regions energy sufficient, which will allow to bring electricity to regions where the transmission system is not yet going completely or not for every household. I see a lot of efforts have been made in India, but there's still some way to do. And therefore, the role of energy storage as such needs to be recognized in the system. It needs to be recognized when you look at the grid fees, no double grid fees, no double taxation, the taxes. You need to create market products and put them on the market and tender them on the market, like enhanced frequency reserve, like all the other products which you see in Europe. You need to clarify the ownership of energy storage devices. Should it be owned by market players only? Should it be owned by regulated entities only? Can you imagine a hybrid structure where one is owning and the other operating it to maximize the welfare, the social welfare of such a device? And we have put a paper on our webpage where we think about this, how such a mixed ownership and mixed operation could function. You need to continue to demonstrate and to fund research. And you need for the investors clearly to show that they have an investment security in their investment. Otherwise, no private investment will materialize. You need to give longer term revenues or other means to show that the investment is secured and that the return on this investment is guaranteed. So as the last slide, and we had only 7 minutes, so I tried to stick to this. We need to meet the Indian energy targets, the renewable energy targets, which have been mentioned in the introduction. They are huge, they are very well defined, and they need to get storage in order to be achieved. We need to empower the population in the remote areas, and therefore we need to roll out significantly energy storage also in India, like we did in Europe, in the States, in other regions. There is no choice if you want to harvest renewable energy sources, which we need to do. This is all from my side. If you have questions, you can drop us an email or follow us on Twitter, but a physical visit maybe it's a bit difficult for the moment. Thank you very much. With this, I will hand it back to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Thank you very much. It is really well intentioned and it gives a word eye view of the story, how things are moving. I invite questions to Mr. Patrick. If there are some questions, he can just take some questions. Maybe I'll ask one question if nobody asks thereafter. First, I invite any question from the audience as well as panelists. Please raise your hands if at all. No question. Okay, Mr. Patrick.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay. No questions. Okay, Mr. Patrick. Just again, the question I would like to ask on Indian renewable energy program. Different studies have mentioned that up to 26-27, India will not require any storage. Still, Government of India is moving ahead with this, creating the capacity of storage insofar as grid connection is concerned. That is one point number one. What is your assessment about the cost? Because the kind of cost we are facing, if you go for 1 hour of storage electricity from the grid and make it at any end, then it raises the cost of electricity by 1 rupee per unit of electricity. Just to give a fair idea that roughly the electricity prices are in the range of 4 to 6 rupees per unit of electricity. So if you are going for evening hours, suppose 4 hours we go for storage, then the cost of electricity will go by 4 rupees now. If we go by the Bloomberg assessment of the cost of electricity of storage system by 2030, it is going by 200 times less, means that from 250, it will be going somewhere around $100 plus per kilowatt hour. Still, it will not be that. What is your reflection on this cost estimates or the storage? And secondly, about the technologies for storage, whether lithium ion is something which is going to be a major candidate or diversification is going on globally. Yes.
Thank you very much for your questions. I will try to be very concise. First of all, the costs. If you move away from coal or gas generation, you will increase the cost of electricity. There's no secret. You will increase it because you will have to build more grids. You will have to build more renewable energy we will have more storage, we will compensate the grid. So there's a cost point. But on the other side, there's an offset. In Europe, we go together with the conservation of energy. So energy efficiency in buildings, in industry is a big driver. So we see in Europe an effect. On one side, the prices increase slightly, but on the other side, efficiency is increasing too. And it becomes more and more economic to do energy efficiency measures. So we see that the overall price very often is not increasing a lot or not at all. So there's a balancing effect, but you cannot say that the price will not increase. Second point is, as you rightly said, the costs for energy storage are dropping dramatically. And we see more and more new technologies coming on. We see that capacitors, which in the past could only store it for some minutes, is now starting to store for half an hour, an hour electricity. So we see that the technology is evolving. We see that when you make hydrogen, you see that there's more and more waste heat used in high temperature electrolyzers. So where you get a way more efficient way of making hydrogen, a cheaper way of making hydrogen, and so on. So I'm a firm believer in technological evolution. I'm a firm believer that we will continue to decrease the prices over the future, and that we will continue to be able to deliver electricity at a reasonable price because of the sum of all the activities, energy efficiency, cheaper prices, better connections, and so on. And then you must not forget that we're also then having an energy system which is more flexible and can create more added value to the consumer of this electricity, the quality of the electricity, the voltage control, you will not have to make an own damper in between or verify your own voltage measurement. It will be more accurate because of the system, because of storage, because of new products, the smarter grids. The quality of the electricity will also be better. The last point was the lithium-ion technology. I believe lithium-ion technology will play a major role in future, will play a role for transport, will play a role for stationary energy storage because the prices went down thanks to the transport of the lithium-ion cells. But I'm a firm believer, as I said, that other technologies will come in. We see a hybridization of technologies by coming the capacitors and the batteries together. We see new technologies coming on board, like the flow batteries, which are very easy to make and very cheap and don't require heavy metals for most of them, imported from around the globe. So it is really technological evolution which will take place, where lithium-ion will continue to play an important role, but will not be the one technology in the next decades, I suppose.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Patrick. Thank you very much. And we thank on behalf of ISGF for your presence and this enlightening lecture. And we hope that we'll continue to interact at various forums. And if we'll seek your indulgence also to provide your insights as and when required for moving ahead the storage ecosystem within the country. Thank you very much. With these words, I thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very sorry I have to leave for another meeting. Have a good meeting and a nice afternoon. Goodbye and thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
With these words, thank you very much. I have the second speaker, Miss Amy Rose, member Grid System Group, NREL. I have brief occasion to see her presentation, which is going to make today. It's really, really enlightening, and we look forward her reflections on this. Miss Amy, please.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen. Here we go. You should all be able to see my screen now. So thank you all very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with this very esteemed panel. My name is Amy Rose. I'm an engineer at the National Renewable Energy Lab. And I think we had a very good initial presentation on kind of why there's so much interest in energy storage.
Dr. Amy, I'm sorry. Dr. Amy, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you just quickly put your slide in the full screen mode? So you can use the, I mean, you can go to the display option.
Swap displays. Is that better?
Yeah, this is better. All yours.
Okay, I had to swap displays. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, so as I was saying, we had a very good kind of initial discussion on what's driving a lot of the interest in energy storage globally. But as another thing that is important to point out is a lot of this interest is driven by the ability of energy storage to provide multiple services in the power sector. So technologies can charge and discharge to provide energy and capacity. They can respond to control signals very quickly and very accurately, making them ideal candidates to provide ancillary services to keep balance of supply and demand in the face of unanticipated deviations. And finally, some storage technologies can serve as transmission assets, reducing, delaying, or deferring the need for network upgrades, or used to manage power flows across a line to reduce congestion. And this versatility, the ability to provide different services at different sectors in the grid, and at times to do so simultaneously, raises new questions from a policy and from a regulatory perspective as to how to maximize the value that storage can bring to the grid. And these questions tend to circle around three main themes, and Patrick hit on these to some extent. The first being what we should consider energy storage to be on the grid. Is it a generation asset? Is it a transmission asset? Or is there a need to create some new type of energy storage resource that has its own classification? A second related question is who should be allowed to own and operate storage facilities? And finally, how should energy storage be treated in planning and operations? For example, how to take into account the speed and accuracy of response when procuring resources for reserves. How do we keep track of the state of charge of a battery, for example, when scheduling and dispatching generation resources? So here I have a few examples of how some of these questions are being addressed in practice. The purpose here is not to recommend any of these solutions, but to highlight the range of approaches that are being tried. So on the question of what energy storage is, in New York, the New York Independent System Operator offers a nice example of creating a new category of energy storage resource that can provide multiple services. For instance, a storage project can act as a network asset to ease congestion and defer transmission upgrades during the summer, but act as a wholesale market participant selling energy into the market during other seasons. On the question of who can own and operate storage, in Texas, the legislature recently updated a law that now allows transmission and distribution utilities to own energy storage facilities as a network asset. And on the question of how storage should be treated and how it should be valued, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, issued an order that now requires US markets to reform how they pay providers for frequency regulation. So the new payment would include a component that rewards faster ramping resources. And as a result, in the PJM territory, we saw a tripling of the available resources for frequency regulation, which is the bar chart on the left here. And a lot of these new resources were coming from storage technologies. And because the storage technologies could respond to signals more quickly and more accurately, PJM was actually able to reduce the amount of frequency reserves that it needed to hold, which is the chart on the right. So what would an enabling policy and regulatory environment for storage look like? Well, with the exception of pumped storage hydro, most countries are still in a familiarization phase with energy storage. And storage is just one among many other potential options to meet system needs. Therefore, initial policy and regulatory measures should focus on, first, removing barriers for storage investments and participation in the markets, establishing a level playing field for storage to compete with other technologies to provide all grid services, not just energy, and adopting a technology agnostic approach to promote innovation among competing technical solutions. So the goal here is not to pick winners, not to invest in promoting lithium ion batteries, but rather to enable whatever the best solution is to participate. And once these conditions are met, then policymakers and regulators can start to look at other proactive measures, like support for research and development, establishing a forum of practitioners for energy storage, organized data collection and reporting. These are really the cornerstones of enabling policies and regulations. So at NREL, we've been thinking a lot about what enables energy storage investments and operations. And we've created what we're calling an energy storage readiness assessment. There's a lot on this table, so don't worry about trying to read it all now. But the goal of the readiness assessment is to allow policymakers and regulators to quickly gauge how well their existing policy and regulatory frameworks are aligned with storage deployment. So there's 20 criteria comprised of system characteristics, policy criteria, and regulatory criteria. And to use the assessment, each criteria receives a color-based grade, indicating if current conditions in a particular country or jurisdiction support, prevent, or have no impact on energy storage investments. And we've applied this assessment to India. We won't have time to go through all the results here, but this table summarizes the key findings, and I'd encourage you to read our full report if you're interested. But what we found is there are a number of areas in green where current conditions are really favorable for energy storage in India, particularly the technical characteristics of the system. However, we also identified a number of institutional barriers for storage investments, particularly on the regulatory front. So what I'll do is, since we won't have time to go through everything, I'll highlight one of these barriers to give you a sense of the type of regulatory barrier we're discussing. If we look at this last criteria of whether or not storage could receive revenue for providing multiple services, here we've said that the current conditions in India are really a barrier for storage investments. So if we look at this table again that I shared earlier of the different services that energy storage can provide, only these first two are areas where storage could earn revenue right now. There are limited mechanisms for standalone storage to earn revenue in India. Compensation is primarily earned through long-term cost of service agreements directly related to the provision of power or renewable energy smoothing. There are several other services where compensation exists, but storage is not eligible under current regulations to provide this service and be paid for it. And then there are a whole host of other services that are not being directly compensated. And this is important because many in the storage industry have noted that value stacking or earning revenue by providing multiple services is really essential to make storage investments economic. So therefore, having limited options to earn revenue is really a barrier for investments. So just to wrap up, we found that the unique features of energy storage really put it in a new position from a policy and a regulatory perspective and raise a lot of new questions as to the role that storage should play in the system and what the rules should be around it. Enabling energy storage regulations should focus on first establishing a level playing field so that storage can compete with other technologies to provide grid services and be paid for those services. And in India, the technical characteristics of the power system are really favorable for storage investments, but there are some institutional barriers that remain. So if you'd like to learn more about some of NREL's work looking at energy storage, not just in India, but in other countries as well, including our capacity expansion modeling and production cost modeling of storage opportunities, I would encourage you to visit our website. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Amy. Thank you very much for this very brief and to the point and very informative presentation. I understand Rahul has joined. Rahul, can you respond?
Yes, Dr. Mehthani, I'm here.
So nice to see you. Great. You have become a little gray after 1 year.
Yes.
It's great.
Yeah.
So Rahul, yes. I have a mandate to invite Mr. Murugan Ramaswamy. So you take over from this point.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So we can go ahead with the keynote presentation from Professor Murugan Ramaswamy. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Maithani and Dr. Rahul. Thank you very much. I think I have to say, can you hear me? Dr. Rahul?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah,
Please go.
can you see my PowerPoint also?
Yes, we can see the PowerPoint.
Okay, so thank you very much. So just I will take a few minutes to discuss on the electrochemical energy storage devices, particularly outlook on present and future technologies. Dr. Maithani told not only battery, you have to think about the hydrogen and other aspects also. But being an electrochemist man, so I thought that better I can focus only on my expertise, its present and future electrochemical energy storage technology. If you ask me whether we achieve these targets, because can we run our taxis and the car and other things by means of battery, either energy storage device or stationary energy storage device. 2 centuries of evolution really made lot of progress, from lead acid battery to the present lithium-ion polymer battery. But which is not sufficient really to think about the application point of view, the electric mobility and energy storage devices, stationary energy storage devices. So what are the requirements to think about the future technology? So if it's electric vehicle, we have to think about at least 300 miles range. Then for energy storage, stationary energy storage, we have to think about how to enhance the geometric and volumetric energy density. And if it's electric vehicles, we always do like to have a rechargeable up to 80% capacity in just 15 minutes or less than that. And life, at least 10 years or 12 years longer. And if it's e-vehicles, at least 150 miles per e-vehicle. And much more important is the safety. So these are the prime factor, much more than that. The cost is the very important and interesting factor. We have to think about all the options. And what could be the right technology? What are the technologies available at present? And what would be the future technology? Future, I won't say it's immediate, maybe in another 10 years times. What are the technologies expected to dominate? So if you look into the comparisons, various specific capacity of various anode materials, I think the lithium is still top. And if you look through these atomic weight and maximum voltage and cost, and you can see atomic weight means really its proton is the hydrogen is the lowest one. The next is the lithium. And maximum voltage still lithium's nobody can compare with it. And cost-wise, lithium is really costly when compared to the remaining materials kinds. But the cost of the lithium we are using the present lithium-ion battery technology is just 3%. Remaining 97% is something else. So that's the reason why still we are dependent on the lithium-ion battery technology. So if you look into this roadmap, what we have done for the last 50 years or 20 years, and present and future R&D activities for lithium batteries in all the 3 aspects, anodes, electrolytes, and cathodes. But then tremendous work because most of the people focused only on lithium-ion batteries. That's the reason why at least we are able to reach to this level. If you look into these electrolytes, organic liquid electrolyte is the presently we're using. People started to work on the non-flammable organic liquid electrolytes. Then we start to work on the ionic liquids. Then started to work a lot on the polymer electrolytes. So slowly we learn, so we need badly these solid electrolytes, particularly inorganic electrolytes. So this is the developments regarding the electrolytes for lithium-ion battery is concerned. Cathode, really tremendous progress, starting from lithium cobalt oxides, then afterwards lithium-ion phosphates. And particularly, this NMC and NCA is a present. Particularly, we reached the level of the lithium which NMC status. But it's time to think about the sulfur and air. This is the very interesting aspect. Future technology of the lithium. Anode, still graphite. And people start to think about the graphite silicon composites, the silicon carbon composites, the lithium composites. And if at all, if you want to think about the highest energy density, which is possible only with the metallic lithium. So if you have the combination of these ones, inorganic solid electrolytes, why metallic lithium is the anode? You can think about the concept of anode-free engineering also. Which means that At present, a lot of focus is on the lithium metal based battery. Particularly lithium metal batteries, conventional insertion electrodes starting from LCO to the present lithium NMC. Then lithium sulfur battery, lithium ion battery. So these are the three aspects. People are really working very hard on metallic lithium concept. But each one is having its own problems. But major problem is the electrolyte. If you have a successful electrolyte, I think the day is not far away to realize the solid state, I think lithium metal based battery is concerned. So when people start to work on the lithium metal batteries, so people struggled hard with the conventional organic liquid electrolytes. So at present, a lot of research activities. Is it possible still the same chemistry just by changing these electrolytes or adding additives or putting some artificial solid electrolyte interface at the lithium and stable host for lithium deposition? This is the active research in the conventional organic liquid electrolytes developing the lithium metal batteries. But I don't think it's not a permanent solution. It might be like immediate solutions or just to market for sometimes. But if you are successful, if you really want to develop the real effect on the lithium metal battery, the ideal option would be other side, what I call solid state. Maybe for initial activities, a polymer-based solid electrolyte might be quite useful. But the prime target is we should think about the inorganic solid electrolytes for the all solid state lithium metal battery is concerned. The concept is very simple. Nothing differ from the conventional lithium ion battery is concerned. So we're having the graphite and the lithium cobalt oxide, lithium iron phosphate, whatever the insertion electrodes in between organic electrolytes. So just we need a separate. So just we can replace the graphite by means of the lithium metals. This is what we want. And replace the conventional insertion electrode by means of anything, whatever you want, starting from LCO to the NMC, NCA, add sulfur. Someone able to find a new electrodes, it's quite interesting that we can also have it. But what we want is, we want to look into this separator, this is what I call organic liquid electrolytes. Replace it by means of a suitable solid electrolytes. Then we can call it as all solid state lithium metal batteries. If it is the concept, it is really great because we can easily come out from the safety issues. We can think about the greatest volume advantage because we can have nowadays we're having the inorganic influence which takes the 30 micron size, and you can reduce the size of the batteries. So you can think about the lithium with the lithium insertion electrodes and metallic lithium to sulfur, and future is the lithium oxygen battery or lithium ion battery concept. So what we really need is finding a suitable solid electrolyte. That's the biggest task. People struggled hard for the last 75 years. It's not new to the world, but almost from 1957 to the present, 2014, there's one big breakthrough afterwards. So several oxides and sulfides and nitrates came into the picture. But out of all the solid electrolytes, still it's a competition between the sulfides and oxides. So among sulfides and oxides, the best ideal solid electrolyte should have all these four characteristics. High lithium ion conductivity at ambient conditions and wide electrochemical stability. If someone able to find an electrode which can produce 7 volt or 8 volt, that potential window should be capable. And good mechanical properties and much more for technical, from the technological point of view, simple process. By keeping these four, which means that lower cost comes down to the price we can bring down because of the simple structure and manufacturing process. Because we can make the plates roll to roll, that's greatest advantage. Higher capacity, because high voltage, you can think about the solid electrolyte, rather stand the decomposition voltage is really high. Safety is a much important in battery. Higher operating temperature, you can think about the 60, 70, 80, even 100 also sometimes. A flame retardant, no liquid leakage concept, and these things makes these active research on this. But we people much more interested on oxides because commercial point of view and the technology maturity level, oxides having a slightly better advantage over these. So this is our biggest breakthrough, the fast lithium-ion conductors, particularly what you call this zirconium-containing lithium carbonates. It is the ideal materials because it possesses the highest lithium-ion conductivity and it's stable against metallic lithiums. No oxides will be stable against metallic lithiums. This beauty of this combination is which makes them most stable against metallic lithiums. And you can think about a battery with potential which is quite large, up to above 7 volts. So if you look at the figure of merit and compared to the sulfides, antiferroskates, and borohydrates, or whatever it might be, it's much, much higher when compared to any other component of these kinds. That's the reason why it's the most attractive system for solid-state battery. Characteristics which makes them most attractive is stable against metallic lithiums, very good lithium-ion conductivity, and wide electrochemical. That's this materials invented in 2007. It's really the biggest breakthrough and really changed the world for as far as the solid electrolyte is concerned. Very interesting aspect is, so it can able to give some more things. Interesting is anode-free concept. Because people struggled hard to manage the metallic lithiums. It's highly reactive. It gives handling is the toughest things. But this electrolytes able to bring another concept. Its concept is well known. It's what you call people try to work with the liquid electrolytes and particularly light also. But it has its own trouble. They couldn't succeed. But this garnet is really helpful. Without any metallic lithium as anode, just you can push the lithium from the cathode sides by using a cathode. So which means that by charging, you can create the in-situ form. So which means that the advantage of having this anode-free engineering is, if you look into the conventional liquid electrolyte, if you have the 100% is the size, you can bring down the volume to 35% by means of just putting a small layer of the metallic lithium instead of the large volume of graphite. But by means of these anode-free engineering, we can reduce the volume by 50%. And what we are working now is the total thickness is something around not even 120 micron or 110 micron. So that's the beauty behind these ones. Initially, you can reduce and you can have these complete metallic lithium metal solid state batteries. So the advantage is increased safety because we're having a perfect ceramic layer, which enables lithium metal as anode. So you can think about the high voltage and smaller size, which means that high energy density and operating temperature, because particularly a country like India, tropical conditions, it should stand at least 45 to 50. And this technology is a mature technology because it's nothing but a 2-layer. So you can think about the technology wise, you can reduce the cost and lifespan also expected to be much more compared to the conventional lithium-ion batteries. That's the last trend, particularly an industry like yours. This really made a biggest breakthrough based on this concept. And if you're really successful with the lithium-ion conductors based lithium-ion battery, next is lithium solid state and lithium sulfur and lithium oxygens, I think that gives a lot of confidence to think about sodium-ion batteries. So sodium-ion, sodium solid state, sodium sulfur, and sodium oxygens. This air battery. It's really next stage you can think about after this lithium is concerned. But stationary energy storage, a lot of technologies available, particularly aluminum-ion battery. But I feel it's a lack of efficient cathode is this difficulty with developing these ones. I hope things will change dramatically in the future. Then aluminum graphite dual-ion battery is quite good. But the problem is electrolytes limited operation. A lot of R&D activities are going on. We hope things will change slowly and we can think about this type of also. My assumption is best thing is for stationary is the redox flow batteries. So this is the diagram which gives the roadmaps, and most people have done huge amount of work starting from these conventional vanadium redox flow batteries, then hybrid and membraneless RF. And so many techniques. People really able to come up to this what I call the solar redox flow batteries also. So we expected several things are going to come and it's going to dominate this, particularly for the stationary energy storage devices concerned. The concept is simple and you can really believe this and depend on this technique for the stationary energy storage devices. So what are the techniques we discussed now? It's immediate. Once we're successful with the lithium metals, this can be extended to the sodium technology. By the time I think aluminum will come, and I think the stationary we expect redox flow will dominate, and particularly for Indian condition, this could be the ideal technology. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity once again for Dr. Rahul, Dr. Maitani. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Murugan, for an excellent presentation and overview covering broad range of technology pathways where we can move forward. Just in terms of the time check, we are just more than an hour and we still have 8 speakers to cover. So if it's okay, I'll straight away go to the next presenter, and then if at end of it, if we time permits, we will have some Q&A. So
yeah, absolutely, please proceed.
Yeah. So I'll request Kurana from World Bank to go ahead and share her opening remarks.
Thank you, Rahul. Just give me a second. I'll just share my screen. It's saying that I can't share my screen till the other. Yeah.
Can you try now? Or someone from technical team can help? Yeah.
Ma'am, I'll share it on my behalf, and you can tell me when to move ahead. So I'll just go on full screen. So just let me know.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
If you can just go on full screen. Can you hear me just fine? Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So thank you so much for asking me to present here today. It's a very important topic and something that the World Bank is engaging in a big way now. I will just, so I have 7 minutes. So I will just take you quickly through the engagement that World Bank has and the work that we are doing in India and in globally. So we are all aware of the National Mission on Transformative Mobility and Battery Storage. When this was announced in 2019, it was announced under the leadership of Niti Aayog. There was an interministerial committee set up where MNRE, MOP, all the other ministries were part of it, because battery storage is not limited to one sector. It goes on to transport as well. So all the ministries were under it in the interministerial committee. And we were requested by Niti Aayog to put in a line of credit for battery storage solutions. But before the battery storage solution line of credit could come in, the idea was to understand what is the demand for battery storage. So Niti Aayog, we've all heard and read in the papers, has come out with this big plan on the supply side, where there's a production linked incentive scheme which has been put in place for a big manufacturing of battery storage. But when we heard all the stakeholders, the key questions which kept coming in, where is the demand? Where is this battery supposed to be put in? And there were a lot of studies which have happened, and we've heard enough about the different, how many gigawatts we'll reach by 2027, 2030. There are loads of numbers out there, and they're all very promising. But one common theme which came out was that around 40% of the demand will be through the e-mobility sector, around 30% from the stationary storage. So what we said was, okay, DA also told us that why don't you do a $1 million of technical assistance, understand the demand, understand the ecosystem, and see how this market will move. And after that, there is a 750 line of credit, which is there, $1 million line of credit, which is there, which will be done in phases. We'll come up with the first phase of $250 million. And there's also a $250 million kept aside for any kind of policy and regulatory development which is required in the sector. What Amy said clearly points out the technical considerations are in place, but there's a lot of work which needs to be done on the policy and regulatory front. So there's a pot of money which we've kept aside to address that as well. So can you move on to the next slide, please? So what I've just told you, I know it's a busy slide, but what it basically shows is look at the number of different ministries involved. All of this under PMO, Niti Aayog, and that's the National Steering Committee. They are looking at the supply side with this scheme, and now they have asked us to come in and see what the demand side is. So this is just a pictorial of that. We can move forward. Next slide here. So this is the engagement that we are looking at. One is demand assessment. I'll share one slide each for the work that we are doing at the ISTS level and the work we are doing at the state level. Then the big question, who owns these assets? How will the different use cases be monetized in the current policy and regulatory environment? And what changes that need to be done in the current scenario to make sure that the battery actually gets its complete value? The value stacking approach, which is said again and again, has to be made a reality. It is all in numbers and theoretical right now. How do we practically make it happen in India? The big question which will come up is safety. Now we've heard about incidents, and if you do not take care of your battery, if the transport is not right, if it's not monitored properly, it can lead to safety issues. And this needs to be put in place right now. The protocols have to be done. So and after that, the disposal of the used battery. So we are working with Ministry of Environment and Forest, where we are working with them on the battery rules. And hopefully we'll come up with a roadmap which can also put all these things to rest. The other thing which came up a lot was the testing facility. So when we were working with NITI Aayog on their, the production linked scheme, and basically where they say that, how do you test before giving those incentives? We came to the conclusion there's a lot of testing facilities which are required and, which need to be done. So World Bank is actually working with South Africa, Morocco, and India in actually putting in place the testing facilities in North and South India. These are all on paper, right now, and we are seeking the funding for the same, but a proposal has already gone from NITI Aayog side. And once this entire ecosystem is in place, you also can bring in the financing, where you give a concession loan to upstart the market. It is something similar to what you've heard that World Bank has done in the rooftop solar, where we came in and provided concessional financing, and slowly other players also moved in. Along with that, there'll be a technical assistance also, which will look at the entire ecosystem and make sure that all the constraints are addressed in the best possible manner. Next slide, please. This has been discussed, I think, a number of times now. We all know what the different value stacks can be, so I won't spend much time on it, except for one. So in India, there's one additional thing that we have in the value stack, which is the DSM avoidance. We know that you have to work in a frequency range, and if you cross that frequency range, there are penalties. So we also, when we were studying the uses of battery, we also considered this in a few states where they're paying huge DSM charges. So that would, the battery would make sense for them right now then. Moving on. So this is the first study which has been undertaken, and we'll be sharing the results about this study in the next 1 month. It's in advanced stages. What this study did was, it basically saw the current transmission ISTS level system, said, okay, what are the new projects which are coming up, mapped out each and every generation plant, saw what transmission lines is coming up, and said, okay, by 2030, what will be the need for storage in the system, where will it be required, and what will be the use cases. When we presented this to MOP, we were given a very good suggestion that why do you want to limit yourself to battery storage? Look at pumped hydro as well, because that is something that has to be planned for long term. And therefore, when we start addressing that question about which kind of storage will come in, we will make sure we see every technology in that. So this is a study which we are doing at the ISTS level, and the results will be out in a month's time, and I'll be happy to share that. Going on, a second study was done at the state level. This was in 4 states. We took Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh, and West Bengal. So the questions which were asked from all states, do I have so much of RE, this is my plan of getting RE in the next 10 years. Do I need battery storage? If I need it, where do I need it? If you think I need battery storage, then what is the business model? Should I own it? Or should I give it to a third party who will, be the operator for me? Who will make the investments? And what should be, when it is done, what should be the warranties in place? What is the global knowledge on that? How can you help us? So this was the questions we were asked by states. We are working with 4 states on that. And this is again, the results will be out soon, but I, in the next slide, have a result for Gujarat. These are all preliminary results. But basically what it shows is Gujarat has a very high gas cost units, which they are using right now. So for them, if we ran this, the entire analysis, and it clearly shows that by 2025, they can actually use a 1 gigawatt 4-hour battery. This is over years, how much it will be added. So, and this is all coming from arbitrage. This is the results that you get from arbitrage. We are not, and this doesn't include the DSM. This only includes the arbitrage results that we're getting because they're using very high cost gas power plants right now. Moving on. So what I, spoke to you right now was all about what we are doing in India. Now, on the global front, there's an energy storage partnership. So we have battery storage investments in quite a few countries. There's one in China, there's one in South Africa. Morocco is looking another one. A lot, either they are happening or they're in the process. So what this storage partnership does is inform these investments. And any work that we do in these investments informs the energy storage partnership. So it's all about sharing global knowledge at every step of the time so that, the country benefits from what is being done globally and you do not reinvent the wheel. And there's a lot to learn going forward. These are we had 34 partners as of August 2020. And from India, Niti Aayog, SECI, Power Grid are all partners in this. And what normally happens is a biannual meeting, and where critical topics are discussed, global knowledge is shared, and after that there are a few reports which come into being. So in the first year, going on to the next slide, in the first year they focused on a couple of things. First was, what were the warranties? What should the testing protocols be? Mini grids and battery storage. This was more focused on Africa region. Then what should be the enabling policies and procurement framework that should be put in place? Then recycling systems. So that was the first year. In the first year, the knowledge products came out on these topics. And in the second year, in a few of these topics, we are doing a deep dive. So that is it from my side. And I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mani, for a very crisp update and all the work which World Bank is doing through energy storage partnership globally, as well as specifically the work which you are doing with Niti Aayog, MOP and MNRE in India. So thank you for that. So now, without further delay, I would like to move to Mrs. Jyoti Parikh. She's the executive chairman for IRADE. They are also doing a lot of work on regulatory and policy issues for renewables, as well as looking into energy storage. So Jyoti ji, without further delay, would like to hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. I thank ISUW for inviting me. I would just like to share some overall perspective and overall energy scenario and climate change scenario under which we have to look at the storage and multiple storage options that range from the current battery level work, as well as who knows, pumped hydro, both open cycle, closed cycle. Then we are looking at prosumers. Electric vehicles themselves can be transferring the power back and so on. So lots of options will have to be done in a very creative manner. So when you look at the, India has committed in Paris Agreement, 40% of the capacity will be renewable based. So for in that context, that is reasonably manageable, and but as it gets more ambitious, we will definitely need far more storage than we are looking at now. And at Iraq, and if especially now, I am also on the COP26 Friends of COP26 committee, chaired by Alok Sharma, who is the COP26 president, and we everybody is talking about net zero. Now, net zero means that you want to go by 2050. No carbon emissions whatsoever. That's a very tough challenge, and I think only some developed countries will manage. But China is talking about 2060, and India has yet to take some view on that. So in that context, when you think of rise of renewables in a big way, we should look ahead of, it cannot be, it has to be partnership with storage, because no renewables can by themselves serve this type of energy system. So we are, if you look at the past, earlier, we spent a lot of time in miniaturizing batteries and thanks to that, we have mobile revolution. But in general, 1990 to 2010, we were aiming to wind power, and now that technology is mature. 2010 to 30, we had solar, mobilization, and that that will continue its momentum from this decade. Now I should say past decade, till 2030 and beyond. But certainly now it's time for storage revolution to join. And at Irade, we have looked at, so this storage revolution would have to continue. At Irade, we looked at pumped hydro energy system. Of course, you have the usual pumped hydro system where you have energy, you put it back in the same place. But what if you can create a new storage somewhere else, which is within the proximity of demand centers? And so that is a different cycle called closed cycle. And we have we are working with Australian National University, ANU, Professor Blakers and so on. They have identified more than thousands of actually sites where we can store water, not necessarily back to the same dam, but somewhere else. And then and that is usually beneficial. So especially when you have a ecological constraint, we want to worry about the biodiversity and so on. And so there is a different concept that which can also add to pumped hydro. We are looking at many types of storage. One is the mini grids level. One is the storage driven with single applications being driven by storage, mini grid storage, and grid size storage. So with all these different things, we can think of multiple options we will have to look at. And as rightly pointed out by Mani Kurana, where is the demand? And demand has to come from these kind of pathways that we decide to go as for the entire energy system. And we have now creating demand for electric vehicles by saying that air pollution is already unbearable, and we need to move on to that. So we need to give signals to the industry that now this is not on constantly petroleum based vehicles. So let's move on to this. Similarly, we will need, and signals have been given for renewable by the Prime Minister and many others who are experts as well. So there's a political consensus, experts consensus on renewable, and similar consensus can be developed for storage, especially when you talk about clean energy and nothing but clean energy that will come very soon, I think. And with India hosting International Solar Alliance and also thinking of OSOWOG, One Sun, One World, One Grid, certainly this cannot be accomplished at all without solar. We also look at the neighboring countries as a storage for energy. I mean, even the Gulf countries can sell electricity, and that is also every 1 hour difference can generate certain amount of power for us, additional power. So if you think of it that way, and Nepal's hydro can be used for us. So it is in a way also a way to manage, to do with less generation capacity, and think of transmission itself as a storage option, whether it can be undersea pipeline or transmission from Nepal, Bhutan. We have been doing, and we have been giving to Bangladesh, and Bangladesh also is augmenting its capacity through Indian capacity without increasing its own. So I would say, let us look at the strategically storage as a part of indisputable part of energy system, and think big about various options and how they fit together. And that will call for a lot of creativity, both on the technical side, institutional side, and financial side. So thank you for this opportunity. I think my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jyoti, for excellent again overview of the work what IRADE is doing, and how you are supporting the advancement of the policy work. And you brought the important issue related to the demand side of it. So now switching gear, let me invite Mr. Nilesh Kane, who is the Additional General Manager at Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited and spearheading the energy storage initiatives for Tata Power. So Nilesh, handing it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rahul. I'm just uploading my presentation. Okay.
Yeah, we can see it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you, ISUW. Thank you, Rahul. And it's my privilege on behalf of Tata Power, I am presenting experience of battery energy storage in Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited. I am sharing a utility perspective. Yeah. Next slide. So this is, the quick introduction of our organization. We are a joint venture company based in Delhi and, operating in north and northwest area of Delhi of 510 square kilometer. And we are serving around 18.37 lakhs of consumer, and our losses are 8%. And this is a success story of technology adoption, over a period of last 15-20 years. Next. The changing paradigm, energy as service, we are strongly of the opinion that energy as a service will be the future of the power sector. And the three important pillars of, the energy or power sector will be decentralization, decarbonization, and digitization. And, the storage will play a very important role, for the sector of e-mobility, for the distributed generation. It will play a very important role for optimizing and high efficiency, the microgrids, renewable integration, and for the local energy market, demand response. For the falling thermal PLFs also, it will support for, the merit order dispatch, or, the ancillary services, for the demand side management, for peaking power, which is a problem across all the states in India, and the ancillary market. The battery storage will play an important role. So in the future of, the power sector, energy as a service, battery will play a very important role. And we are trying to share the experience of the battery storage in the utility. Next. So what is the need, or what is, the importance of battery energy storage, especially for, the utilities? Obviously, to meet the challenges faced by the utilities in managing the peak power demand, to manage the power market volatilities, to better manage, the power quality, especially the reactive power management, to better manage, the power purchase agreements, because most of the utilities are bleeding because of very high cost, the power purchase agreement, PPAs, defer the capital expenditures, especially city like Mumbai and Delhi. The space constraint is a major issue. So battery will play a very important role. Voltage and frequency deviation, the penalties, what the utilities are paying in crores to take care of that, to decongest and optimize, the utilization of distribution network, to integrate renewable energy, independent renewable energy, as well as the rooftop solar is also penetrating in a big way. So the utilities need to take care of that to reduce the dependency on expensive power plants, and obviously for the resilience to the grid security and the grid integration. BESS will play a very important role, and in time to come, BESS will become an integral part of the grid. Next. Here I am going to share, the experience of a power utility of different types of the battery storage and its application. As you all are aware, 2 years back, we are the first utility to implement the 10 megawatt hour energy storage in Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited, and it's situated in Rohini. This project we did with, the partnership with AES and Mitsubishi, the first pilot project, and we have integrated that on 11 kV and 66 kV grid station. Recently, we have also commissioned, a 600 kilowatt hour, the battery energy storage, what we call the community storage, a small battery energy storage that is at, the load end or near the distribution transformer. That we did with the partnership with Excite and Liglanche. And, we are in the process of implementing the smaller pole mounted battery energy storage in time to come, especially at the fag end of the feeders. For the longer feeders where reactive compensation, voltage profile and frequency are some issues there, we are projecting a small capacity of, the pole mounted battery energy storage. For that, we are working with Rice and University and, with the Pixie, Mrs. Pixie, to deploy the pole mounted battery storage. So these are the 3 areas where we have an experience to implement the battery energy storage. Next. So this is a picture of the inauguration and some photographs of the battery energy storage we implemented 2 years back. The budget of around 70 crore rupees, Indian rupees, and we did with AES and Mitsubishi. Next. So this is a simple architecture. It is a 10 megawatt hour, and there are 4 cores of 2.5 megawatt hours each, because we have, a typical topology of 66 by 11 kV grid on which, we have 25 MVA transformers. So both the transformers are supported with 2 11 kV feeders are interconnected with 2.5 megawatt hour, the cores. And in, every core, there are 2 nodes, and every node, there are 14 numbers of battery, and each battery capacity of 6.5 kilowatt hours. It is integrated with the byway, the smart inverters, and it is integrated appropriately through isolation transformers. Next slide. So these are the key parameters of the battery storage for last 2 years. We are monitoring, obviously, the rated power capacity, the energy capacity, the storage duration is very important. The cycle life and lifetime, we started with 1 cycle a day. And, during the summer season, we have gone up to 1.5 cycle, per day. So the self-discharge, state of charge, regularly monitoring, the temperature monitoring, and, regular monitoring of round trip efficiency. In last 2 years, we have measured round trip efficiency and DC to DC efficiency as an, important parameter every year. Next point. And these are, the limits, rated capacity is 10 megawatt hour, 10 megawatt hours, 10 megawatt, 1 hour, 6,000 cycle is the, the size, 6,000 cycles is, the lifetime of the battery. We are operating from minus 23 to 4 degrees centigrade. We have kept 200, tonnage of the air conditioning for maintaining this, round trip efficiency 95%. State of charge from 5% to 98%, obviously from 0 to 100% almost for this lithium ion battery storage. And the self-discharge 80 kilowatt hour is the losses. Next. So these are the typical now applications of the battery energy storage what we have used. So for the Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited with our peak, we have a limit of 38 megawatt. If we cross the deviation of 38 megawatt in both the side for underdrawal and overdrawal condition, obviously we'll end up in paying the penalties for the overdrawal and underdrawal. So to take care of that, we have have a automatic logic of DSM that is the deviation settlement mechanism, in which, we monitor every 5 minutes, the under drawal and over drawal. A typical example has been given, and we try to operate, as a power utility in a band of 49.85 to 50.05. And, every 2 minutes we monitor the under drawal and over drawal, and appropriately the battery's discharge and charging condition, and the decisions are being taken. This can operate manually as well as, automatically, and it is integrated with our SCADA. Next slide, please. So, the base
Nilesh, can you wrap in a
Yeah, sure. I'm quickly taking it. Yeah. So these are the applications, the deviation settlement and ADSM penalties. The sustained deviation, the regulation came in last year, and this year you could see from this graph that the penalty is what we paid and how much we have saved by using the battery storage. Next slide. So this is, the automatic, the frequency regulation mode in which we are operating, and this graph is indicating that, with a slope of 2 megawatt per 0.01 hertz, so quickly we are charging and discharging in the range of, the appropriate limit of 49.85 to, 50.05. And these are the limits, and these are some pictures indicating that how the base has operated automatically. Next slide. Reactive power management, the capacitors are being used, to take care of the under voltage problem. But for the over voltage, generally all utilities are land up in paying the huge penalty. For our case, we have paid around 8 crores of rupees because we do not have any solution. So battery plays a very important role. From 97% to 103% in a band, we generally operate the grid. But whenever, the voltage is more than 103%, especially during the winter seasons, or when your bigger consumers are operating capacitors continuously, battery has played a very important role, and pictures indicating how we have used, to take care of the voltage profile for our utility. Next slide. So this is simply, the savings, actual savings, what we have got, we have used around 300 odd cycles, and, we have used 1.2 cycles a day during the summer. Especially the usage is more, since last September, October, whenever, the sustained deviation regulation has came up. Next slide. These are, the summary and learning of, the 10 megawatt base. These are the core one, this one. The key cases of the base, we have used it extensively for the peak load management and managing the deviation settlement, reactive power management, and frequency regulation. Obviously, the auxiliary consumption is an issue, and time to come, we look forward for the technologies with the lesser auxiliary consumption. Efficiency, what we have seen is 96.5. Hopefully, the technologies with the better round trip efficiency, around 98, 99% will be a good solution for the utilities to scale that up. Next slide. Next slide, please. This is, I told, the community energy storage. We have interconnected on, the substation transformer, and to take care of some important loads, we have two. One is the preferred bus and one is the main bus. So in the situation of, the failure of transformer, failure of power supply or O, so it is interconnected on LT side. So important customers like hospitals and all will be taken care by using the smaller distribution transformer. We have considered the 150 kilowatt for 4 hours, such that within 4 hours generally we will be in a position to restore, the power supply in a utility. So this is also one, and we are successfully using in a congested area of Rani Bagh in Pitampura in Delhi. Next slide. These are some pictures what we have used for frequency regulation.
If you can wrap up quickly, because we have
last slide only. Yeah.
4 speakers left. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a peak shaving and frequency regulation pictures. Next slide. Next slide, please. So we did a joint study, for the total battery storage requirement for the Tata Power DDL with the IFC. Next slide, please. And, I will just highlight, what are the findings. We have considered different, the revenue streams like peak load, energy arbitrage, deviations, and reactive power management, as well as the capex deferral and solar rooftop integration and the ancillary services. Next slide, please. And these are, the pictures what we have used, the load patterns, potential district and applications, and a detailed load store study to indicate where exactly the battery storage and what capacity of the battery storage is required. Next slide, please. These are the benefits, and we have come out with 50 megawatt and 100 megawatt hour battery storage will take care of all our requirement and the revenue streams what we have indicated earlier in the presentation. Next slide. So this is the way forward, we look forward, for ancillary services regulation immediately, storage obligation similar to RPO if it will come, the application and scalability of the battery storage will be high. Storage with, the less effect of the temperature rise will be the, need of an hour in Indian subcontinent. And, the integration of BESS under terms will give an operational perspective in time to come. Storage as a service will also play a very important role for the behind meter industrial and commercial customers, and storage behind the meter will reduce the capex cost for the utility in time to come. So effectiveness, based on our experience, we can say, the battery will play a very important role in time to come, not only for the customers, for the utility, for the stability of the grid, as well, to create, the discipline in the grid operations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nilesh. So without further delay, I would like to move on to Naveen from the BACS Rajani to share the perspective of the other utility in Delhi. And again, I request all the panelists now to please stick to the 7 minutes because we have less than 30 minutes and 4 speakers to go. And I think we have a hard stop at 4 o'clock for closing the panel. So Naveen, please, handing it.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul. And good afternoon, everyone. I would quickly be covering about the kind of challenges as a utility we face with the advent of new RE into our network and kind of the effort which we are doing for decarbonization of our power portfolio and how energy storage can mitigate or help us in meeting those challenges. Next slide, please. Yeah. So to start with, I'll quickly give a brief introduction about BRPL. BACS Rajdhani Power Limited is one of the discom in Delhi. It's a joint venture between Delhi government and Reliance Infra. We serve over 26 lakhs of consumers spanning across 750 square kilometer of area. And in terms of AT&C loss, we are at a single digit of around 8%. And we have reduced over 43% of T&D loss in the last 19 years of operations. And in terms of RE portfolio, the graph you can see over here, the RE portfolio we are expecting by 21-22, by end of 21-22 would be around 29% in terms of power portfolio. So in total, it would be somewhere around 1300 megawatt of RE integrated with our system. Majority would be solar and then wind. And in addition to that, of course, we would be having rooftop solar integrated with our grid. As of now, we have already integrated 78 megawatt of rooftop solar. And by 21-22, it is expected to go beyond 100 megawatt. Next slide, please. This is a kind of load curve which I want to highlight here. In Delhi, we have 3 different seasons, I would say, in terms of power load curve. The first one is the blue curve, which you can see over here is the representation of a peak summer day, wherein we can see demand go as high as over 3000 megawatt. And on the same day, the lowest demand would touch to below 2000 megawatt. So we can see there is a diurnal variation of almost 1200 megawatt in a given single day. Likewise, in winters, if you see the green curve, that also indicates a diurnal variation or a daily variation of around 1200 megawatt. And yearly variation, of course, we can see yearly variation is more than 2000 megawatt. It is touching around 2500 megawatt. So this is the kind of demand variation which we face, and it needs a kind of accurate forecasting of demand, which helps us in meeting our schedule within the given band as provided in the DSM regulations. So over and above this demand variation, we are also getting some sort of supply side variation due to REs into our portfolio. So next slide, please. Yeah, this slide, I just wanted to highlight, this is a low duration curve of last 4 years of our network. I just wanted to highlight over here that base load, which is the load which happens more than 80% of the time in a year, is more or less constant or hovers around 1100 megawatt in last 4 years. And whereas intermediate load has slightly increased, you can say from 850 megawatt to 1000 megawatt. However, there is a tremendous increase in the peak load, which can be seen over here that peak load has increased from 780 megawatt to almost 1050 megawatt in 1920. And if you see the peak load, if I give an absolute figure, say load greater than 3100 megawatt, that happened only for 2.2 hours in the complete year. So the main question or main point comes over here: do we really need to augment our network in meeting the peak load, or basically peak load which happens only for a minuscule period of time? Or should we look for some other alternatives which can, of course, help us in meeting that peak load, because we cannot go for load shedding. That is not an option available to us. So we can find some alternative which can help us in meeting these peak load. And along with that, it can serve us various other purposes which can also help us in increasing the kind of penetration of RE into our portfolio. Yeah, next slide, please. So based on these load duration curves and RE scenarios, I tried to highlight what are the key operational challenges which can come up during coming years while operating. So
minute warning, just to give you a heads up.
Yeah, as we know, we are into a kind of energy transition from, say, conventional to non-conventional, and from dispatchable energy to the non-dispatchable energy, from firm power to inform power. So we really should be looking forward for some sort of a solution which can provide the required flexibility. And not only in terms of shifting towards RE, in fact, on the demand side, as we all know, government is also pushing hard towards electric vehicles. So electric vehicles will bring further demand side variability into our demand forecasting. So it's a dual challenge for the DISCOM, basically demand side variability, as well as we have to meet the supply side variability. So to have a match between supply and demand, we are looking, or we can say energy storage could be one of the solution which can provide the required flexibility. So I would request next slide, please. So energy storage can be one solution which can provide required flexibility, not only in terms of shifting its inherent nature from getting load sometime to generator and generator to load. Other than that, it can provide various, or it can help us in meeting various other use cases, which we already had discussed. So I'll not go into details of these, but there are various other use cases which can be handled by energy storage, along with providing the flexibility and required ramp support when we have a high RE scenario. Next slide, please. So I would like to cover here the few of the pilot initiatives which we are carrying out in our area in the field of energy storage. So this first slide is about the battery energy storage implementation with TERI as our academic partner under a UISS project. In this pilot, we are carrying out implementation of energy storage at 3 locations. The first location is our distribution transformer location. We are integrating energy storage at this site primarily for overload management of that DT and some sort of load shifting or energy arbitrage in that DT. The other site is a gated community society. It is kind of behind the meter storage. It's a high, I would say, a high voltage consumer, HT consumer, and we are implementing energy storage to provide the reliability as a backup in case of any outage, as well as to reduce the DG consumption, which they use for their common load serving in case of any outage. And the third side
Naveen,
is...
Naveen, just because we still have 3 more speakers and less than 20 minutes left now. So please, try to wrap up.
Yeah, give me 1 more minute. And the third side is a university site, TERI University site, wherein we are also working implementing this energy storage. The primary use case is the energy arbitrage and time shift and getting the benefits because of TOD tariff. Next slide, please. Another pilot we are doing, or I would say it's a real project which we are working on, implementation of battery energy storage at 6 different transformer locations under the capex approval from the regulator, with a cumulative capacity of around 550 kilowatt and 1050 kilowatt hour. The primary use cases are peak shaving, load shifting, and backup to the critical loads. Next slide, please. And another pilot which we have initiated the DPR with the regulator in partnership with SECI and Deloitte under GTG RISE program. The primary use case under that DPR is to provide the required ramping by 21-22 when we have around 1300 megawatt of RE in our portfolio. So we feel the energy storage is must while providing that ramping support. And similarly, during high RE surplus generation, we can, of course, use that storage for charging the battery. We can use that surplus generation for storage, for charging the storage. Next slide, please. And this is one of another initiative which we are doing along with GIZ. We call it PV Port. It's behind the meter solar plus energy storage. It's a small plant of 2 kilowatt with a battery capacity ranging from 1.2 kWh to 4.3 kWh. And we are targeted to charge the batteries during daytime by solar and discharging during the night times. And we feel when multiple systems would be integrated, and we can operate these systems in form of virtual power plant for peak load management and other ancillary services. Next slide, please. Yeah. So the key takeaways or recommendations I would like to make it here. The energy storage, we heard earlier also, it is must for flexibility and the kind of inherent characteristics from load to generator and from generator to load. It would definitely help in meeting or in meeting the, I would say, RE targets of the DISCOM as well as Government of India's ambitious plan to achieve 450 gigawatt by 2030. But the main point over is the value stacking of this battery energy storage system has to be carried out in a proper manner so that the use case should be economically viable. Basically, we need to convert all the use cases into a profitable business case so that regulator feels at ease to approve that for implementation. The third key takeaway would be like, since DISCOM being an entity which is being regulated by a regulator, so regulator plays an important role over here to approve these projects either under CapEx or OpEx model, but they should be open for these new projects. And we hope regulators should work on that and should be supporting the DISCOMs to go ahead with these projects. And the last or important point I would make it here, for DISCOM, we have RPO targets. Similar sort of, we should have some sort of energy storage targets as a part of system planning so that more and more renewables can be integrated along with renewables. Because if we have only renewables in our power portfolio without any energy storage, it would be difficult in coming times to maintain our network. So energy storage is must, and it should be made part of system planning. And further, we are looking some sort of incentives or CFA from the government side to initiate these projects. And maybe concession loans may also be granted by financial institutions. Thank you. Thank you, Rahul. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Naveen, for all the work which you are doing and both on the analysis as well as looking at the pilots. I think this is very important. So now switching gears, let's go on to the technology company side. So first, I'd like to invite Mr. Suraj Rangarajan, CTO of Applied Materials, to share his insights.
Hi, Rahul. Good evening. I'm Sarin. I'll be representing Suraj.
Yeah, hi, Sarin. Please go ahead.
Can I request share my screen?
So you can share your screen. There's an option at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, please tell me when you can see my screen.
Yes, sir, it's visible. You can go ahead.
Good evening, everyone, and good morning, those who are calling from US. And thank you, ISGF and IESA, for inviting us for this conference. And today, my talk will be quickly about the fast charge and high energy density batteries with advanced anodes. It will be more specific to EV and also potentially can be used for other grid applications. And I'll be talking on behalf of my colleague, Dr. Suraj Rangarajan. And to quickly, my top slides will contain the following agenda. So who are applied materials and what we do on the battery roadmap, and also what we are focusing on specific to high energy density anodes, and what are the technical challenges and what we currently offer. And those who don't know applied materials, we are a multinational company from Santa Clara, California. And we are listed in the NASDAQ for over 50 years. And we are the only 3 companies which are still there over the last 47 years. And we are a roadmap company. We are not a manufacturer of battery. We like to call ourselves equipment manufacturer. We make semiconductor and display equipment, and also equipment for other technologies where we are world #1, like a solar for some time. And also we make equipment for various other technologies in pharma and other new areas. So basically today, what we call it frontier technologies and deep technology, that's what we do. And basically every semiconductor chip, memory or logic or computer or display screens, that be it be your laptop or your mobile phone or tablet, it all comes from our equipment, whoever you buy from. And this is what we've been doing for the last 50 years. And that's pretty much about applied materials. On the energy storage, we have been in the energy storage business for about 20 years now, mostly R&D and developing new technologies. And the world's first thin film batteries was supplied by Applied Materials in Europe in 2012. And in India, we worked with Professor Murugan and also other institutions and started the solid state battery program in 2013. It was one of the world's largest solid state battery R&D. We're looking at exploratory materials. And we have various R&D programs currently ongoing with the Department of Energy in US and also with Europa programs. And just to quickly show what we are working on, we were working on high energy density. When we say high energy density, it can be watt-hour per kg or watt-hour per liter. Watt-hour per liter is typically its volumetric efficiency for those things that you carry on your pocket, like a mobile phones. So lithium cobalt oxide is typically around 400 to 500 watt-hour per liter. So, but still, the lithium cobalt battery takes about 40% of your phone volume. It's a large real estate driver for watt-hour per liter. But all other applications, typically it is watt-hour per kg. And if you look at what actually drives this, it's 60% of the impact you can get by for increasing the cost and energy density of the battery by increasing the watt-hour, either by high capacity cathodes or high capacity anodes. High capacity cathodes, everyone has been working on with various chemistries, NCA, LFP, the 4th generation of LFP now, and various other chemistries, what normally people talk about. But predominantly, it has been always graphite for the last 30 years on the anode side. And in this chart on the left, you can see we have charts only from 200 watt-hour per kg. So most of the batteries that you get in India today are less than 200. The most of the LFP batteries at cell level, it could be about 170. At pack level, it is about 110 or even less. And even the NMC batteries, most of it is about 250. When it becomes pack level, it comes close to less than 200. And where we are today with respect to the roadmap, I want to quickly share a few things here. There are a couple of slides here. One is taken from the EU Battery 2030 Plus. And today we are around 300 watt-hour per kg with various manufacturing companies. These are high volume manufacturing companies. And especially today, so on March 3rd, 2021, we could have seen the news that China, a company, are releasing a lithium iron phosphate battery with 480 kilometer range. So even lithium iron phosphate is now competing with NMC at 170 watt-hour per kg. And lithium iron phosphate, there is one of our customers who's also promising to give 210 watt-hour per kg with lithium iron phosphate. So the key thing for density, energy density improvements, the cathode people are working on, but most of the changes that happen over the last 1 year because of the pandemic is mainly from the design, not essentially from the chemistry, it's from the design. And from the fast charge side, another key thing is when we talk about fast charge, it's 80% under 15 minutes. And most of the fast charge today is somewhere between 20 to 40 minutes. But those vehicles are at higher battery capacity. We're talking about 60 to 100 kilowatt hour battery capacities. But the Indian market is still way off. We are still talking about 40 minutes to 1 hour for a 2 kilowatt battery pack. And what we are doing currently is also one other thing that we are targeting is the first cycle irreversible loss. So if you look at anodes, whether it is graphite anodes or SiOX or silicon anodes, typically these were the energy densities. And during the first cycle, during the formation cycle, the graphite batteries is about 10% say a cycle energy density loss. So this corresponds to basically loss from your at the cell level, and at the pack level it will be much more. And SiOS batteries are again 35%, and silicon it is say close to 30%. And one of the technologies that we have developed called pre-lithiation for depositing lithium on the graphite and graphite silicon anodes can completely eliminate this loss, bring back that 30% capacity that has been lost. That is something that we will show. And here, these are all well established in the industry, and the reason that we are showing silicon here is because silicon is probably the only material that is enables fast charge. So both SiOX and SI, we have also invested in various startups in the US, Solid Energy, for example, and also Zen Labs. We have some very interesting results from them. And what we are doing currently is we have two technologies. One is called pre-lithiation, and another is called lithium metal deposition. And this will basically improve the whatever kg or the energy density. And this can be used for existing battery technologies just by increasing the anode side. So we heard about Professor Murugan talked about on the separator, and also metal air and metal anode-free batteries for the future. And we already have technologies right now on the anode side. We can deposit pure lithium metal on copper foils at very, very high speeds at a cost that is actually less than what is industry currently using for the anode cost. And where we are at fast charge, typically we want to charge in less than 5 minutes, because that's the time that we wanted to use.
Yeah, Mr. Sarin, sorry, but can we wrap it up in another minute, because
yes,
we still have two presentations. Yeah.
Yeah. So so what we are doing right now in fast charge is we can't have large battery packs. It has to be at least you can charge 100 kilometers within 5 to 10 minutes. That's what we are looking at. And if you look at some basic chemistry, existing graphite anodes, it cannot be fast charged. So because it cracks up in the SEA layer, it forms dendrites. So most of the companies, what we say are DC charging or fast charging, primarily using carbon anodes, or practically it's not real fast charging. And as you see on the Ragon plot, there is also theoretical limit on which chemistries that you can actually do fast charge. So this is something that on the fast charge, and one of the companies that working with us has recently showed more than 1,000 cycles at a 4C rate. Zen Labs, probably you are aware of this. So they are using NCM cathode with SiOX. And we also have, and this company exclusively makes battery packs for vertical takeoff and landings for the electric planes, not for just electric vehicles. So that is another big requirement, because there for the electric planes, the electric taxis, we require more than 350 watt-hour per kg as a requirement. And here in this picture, we show our equipment, where we are on the right, I can see actually lithium metal deposited on 800 millimeter wide copper foil, a 6 micron thick copper foil. And we have equipment which can we roll foils up to 4.8 meters long. And typically these equipment run at very, very high speeds. And this is from our German Technology Center from Alzeno. And we also have other equipment similarly for thin film deposition of various layers required for high volume manufacturing of lithium batteries. So that's all I have. So thank you very much. I'm done, Rahul.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Sarin. So I think a lot of exciting technical developments which are happening. So now I would like to request Dr. Rashi Gupta, who has been right at the forefront of the Indian industry and doing some interesting things. So Rashi, handing it over to you.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, ISGF, for this opportunity. Well, we all have heard a lot of these, my esteemed co-panelists out here talking about why energy storage is needed and what all we should do. I'll give slide a bit of industry perspective on this as well. Now, energy storage is also being considered for grid ancillary services such as peak demand reduction, improving stability and energy, and improving the efficiency for the transmission. Utilities are moving towards adopting grid scale energy storage for grid management. Now, batteries will always remain the key for this energy shifting and financial energy arbitrage. Despite the versatility of batteries, energy shifting still remains an important use case for the batteries, particularly for the financial energy arbitrage. Batteries provide an opportunity for lots of consumers to marry their load and purchase of energy with their load to shape it in a particular financial profile. And with the increase in decentralization of grid due to renewables, energy trading and application of energy storage will see a major rise. We've also seen that blockchain technology is facilitating peer-to-peer energy trading, and we really hope that all of this comes to India also very soon. Energy storage technologies will also depend upon the requirement of your project. There is no single energy storage solution for all the energy storage projects. Currently, lithium-ion batteries have become the most popular due to their high energy density and long life. Energy density of energy storage is increasing with the patents, and we all have seen so much of technical work that has been done. Sorry, non-lithium based batteries like fuel cell, flow batteries, sodium sulfur batteries are also expected to scale up. Something which is predominantly now increasing is remote monitoring and IoT. And IoT is increasingly being used in energy storage. Using data analytics and artificial intelligence, predictive and preventive maintenance of batteries is possible. This would improve the reliability and life of batteries, and we at Vision Mechatronics can now also predict 15 days in advance the cases of failures. Life and efficiency of batteries are also being improved with advanced battery management systems. In fact, India is the first and pioneer to have the battery management system in place for grid scale utilities based systems as well, which if you adopt, definitely you would have much more peace of mind and you would have lesser issues when you are adopting the energy storage systems. Something which is very crucial today now is with this growing need of energy storage, something very crucial is the quality control, which has become very important into the manufacturing field. Safety norms, packaging, which even Mani mentioned in her statement, that recent explosions and fires in batteries have been an increased concern of safety for energy storage. So a lot of standards are being made by BIS, IEC also for the quality of batteries. A very important use case scenario that we all need to certainly evaluate is the second life of batteries. Batteries are used in EVs, can be replaced after 5 to 10 years. I mean, 5 years is a good number to replace them. And they usually still have about 70% capacity left in them, and they can be used for a less intensive applications like stationary energy storage. However, an accurate estimation of remaining capacity of batteries and their state of health is very much required. If we can get that thing done, I mean, we would really achieve something which is phenomenal in terms of understanding how these batteries can be used into the second life application. Something which also the industry perspective is now looking at is the recycling of batteries, because very soon we'll have lots of these lithium-ion batteries coming out, and we need to have infrastructure in place to get these recycling done, because at present recycling is a liability based model and we need to convert it into an asset based model, because India's perspective is about if I have to sell these used batteries, there's something that I need to get back. If I don't get back the money, then I'm not going to scrap it off. So that asset model needs to come into picture to make recycling really effective in India. Now we all have seen the trailers, short trailers of the climate change and global warming, which has caused extreme weather events, which have increased. We all have witnessed many such events. And these just not only affect the renewable energy generation, but also have an impact on the conventional grid. Like Texas power crisis of 21 and outages we have seen due to storms in India are the recent examples. So distributed energy storage is very critical for maintaining a reliable energy supply and mitigating these extreme weather events. If we do not work towards it now, I don't think we will ever be able to work about it. These are very crucial events. Another important aspect that everybody has to look at is the residential energy storage, which is expected to rise, giving the offset of these power outages and the rising demand. I mean, everything is virtual, everything needs energy, power. And if we do not have these renewables and storage in place together with the correct combination, we will be in difficulty. Demand for the CNI is also increasing, and OPEX model make it really favorable for a very strong storage based renewables. So remote monitoring and IoT is a great assistance to the OPEX models, because CNI users can actually manage their peak demand time tariffs, use them very well, and the EPC or the installer who does this on the OPEX waste can actually use this entire remote monitoring, IoT, and preventive and predictive maintenance to actually gather the best of the system and to make sure that he does not have a downtime. So renewables plus storage will offer a fixed rate to supply to them, and also reduce the dependence on the government policies over the renewables and the net metering issues that we have been recently seeing. Hopefully, I'm sure the government is also going to add more storages to this, to their demands of the renewable energy tenders that are coming up more. So although the current prices of the energy storage have increased slightly due to the pandemic, but that's a temporary effect, I suppose, but till the supply chain normalizes, price will further decrease and there will be a lot of increase in manufacturing. But we need to have the right energy mix to actually sail through the climate change and move towards more sustainable, inclusive, and a circular development of the current crisis. So Asia is expected to dominate the energy storage market with major innovations coming from the Asian companies. And I look forward to this great event here. Over to you, Rahul, and exact time.
Thank you, Rashi, very much. So now for the last speaker, I would like to invite Mr. Kundal Rao from ABB Hitachi for sharing his insights. Mr. Bhavishet, you hear me? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Rahul, and and also thank you, India Smart Grid Forum, for inviting us to give quick insights on this. In fact, all the speakers already covered most of my content, and also it's glad that I'm part of this informative discussion. Hope everybody is seeing my screen.
Yes, we can see and hear you.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is about, as a technology company, we have years of experience in the battery energy storage and also grid solutions. We have around 470 plus megawatt of installed base, 100 plus project delivered worldwide, and we supported 100 plus countries in the service, as well as the in helping them in developing the infrastructure. So other aspects is challenges that already mentioned many of the panelists. And in terms of the electricity consumption in the rise, coal plant retirements, growth in renewables, electrification of transportation. So these are the challenges that we are seeing in the future grid. And so in terms of the battery energy storage applications, we have at at the transmission level, ancillary services, and front to the meter and behind the meter, where we are looking for the battery to stabilize the network, as well as the regulations and the voltage requirements over frequency regulations, etc. And this one, I would like to share one of the case study that we did recently to determine the requirement of battery. So this is in the network of Alaska, and they have the radial network, and the loss of the major tie lines between the systems, and the system is looking at the voltage and the frequency collapse. And the left side is the more generation they have, and the right side they don't have any generation, so everything flow from one direction to another direction. The loss of this tie line resulting into the frequency collapse in the system, and we did extensive studies to come up with a battery to prevent that kind of frequency collapse in the network. And so this particular plot, you can see when there is a loss of the tie line, that megawatt deficiency in one part of the island, resulting in the frequency collapse. Even they have the under frequency load shedding and other preventive actions to regulate the frequency. And this one I will show you with the battery energy storage, how that system stabilized, and without affecting the under frequency load shedding in the system. With the support of battery, how we mitigate the frequency regulations. Similarly, it's the problem of voltage collapse and how the battery has secured them in maintaining their voltage within the acceptable levels. So this was a detailed study that we analyzed, and the battery is successfully running, and the system secured from many blackouts from their previous history to now, because of the battery. They don't have any plans to add the additional transmission lines to increase the strength of the network because of the network structure. But in this case, the battery is an ideal solution to secure their network from the voltage and frequency regulations. So when it comes to the frequency regulations, definitely we'll have to look at what is the throughput requirement. Based on that, the cycles and everything will decide the battery size requirements. And this particular slide will tell you when we have this the requirement for the 10 years life for the utilization and the state of health, how the size can give you the requirements of number of cycles to be in operation. So this case is with respect to 7.3 megawatt hour. The other case, when you size the battery based on the requirement that you studied from the regulator or the system operator, you can come up with the exact sizing to meet their requirements. So the sizing the battery is a real importance in terms of understand the requirement and come up with the proper sizing to meet the requirements of the network. Similarly, for the distribution network, so the solid one you can see how the load in the system vary throughout the day, and when we have with respect to solar and rooftop solar, and how that demand can reduce because of the generation is added at the load shed itself, but because of the electric vehicles adding in the system, that would increase the substation capacity. It would require some of the challenges from the grid side. You may not have the hosting capacity. So postponement of these grid upgrades may result into the challenges in adding the additional loads in the distribution network. And integration of distribution renewables and EV is always postponing the requirements. And with the help of the battery, and the energy management system to integrate all these facilities, can able to integrate this PV generation and this EV loads in the system. So this is alternatives to the non-wire solutions. And this one, with respect to the values stack, in terms of what are the advantages that we can see with respect to capex, opex, and the benefits that we see with the battery. So this is one of the business case that we did for one of the application. And so when you look at the traditional wire solution and the BESS with the energy management system, the payback period is about 6 years, and also internal rate of return is 15%. So the important aspect here is the net present value. So that's how the battery can help instead of going with the longer queue of the transmission upgrades and other aspects. There is any decentralized solutions to meet the system requirements. So this is my final slide, and so all in all, when we look at this kind of technology, always we'll have to look at the market analysis to understand the trends in energy price, tariffs, drivers for energy storage applications, market participation, revenue streams. And then comes to the financial analysis, always the technical analysis to look at the stability and dynamic studies, contingencies, power quality and reliability, and frequency and voltage regulations. So this will tell us what kind of the technology that will require to maintain the grid stable and resilience. So that's how, we'll have to make the decision and planning these kind of technologies for increasing the renewables or looking forward for the net zero kind of initiatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kondala Rao. Can you close your presentation so that so I'll use a small presentation to just wrap up and try to summarize insights from all the speakers. So I know we are already over the time limit, but I'll try to wrap it up in next 5 minutes. So first of all, again, I would like to once again thank India Smart Grid Forum for continuing to bring focus on energy storage at the India Smart Utility Week. We have this partnership with ISGF for last 8 years, where ISUW has become one of the key event in the calendar for energy storage advances, particularly on the utility side. And it's really good to see the progress that is happening across the policy, regulatory, with various analysis, and now seeing actually projects getting built, and then companies like Applied Materials working on the manufacturing side, Vision Mechatronics, ABB, Hitachi working on the actual solutions, because all of us ultimately have to come together to take this sector forward. So to start with, just as a quick background, I am President and Managing Director for Customized Energy Solutions India, which is a subsidiary of CES US. We have been working on energy storage for more than 15 years and manage more than 13 gigawatt of assets, including 300 plus megawatt of energy storage. And using that experience and also experience of supporting policy and regulatory developments around the globe, we have been working in India since 2010 for opening up this sector. We also started in 2012 the India Energy Storage Alliance to try to bring together various stakeholders for advancing the policy and regulatory framework. Over the last 8 years, IESA has grown, starting from 5 members to now more than 120 members. So again, I thank all the stakeholders for coming together and working with us for advancing these policies. Over the years, there has been, although I think I agree with Ami's assessment, where she mentioned there are still many barriers which are remaining, which needs to be removed before storage can really start take off as a standalone asset. At the same time, I think some of these changes do take time, and especially MNRE has done a lot of work starting 2013, looking at forming various committees for energy storage role for renewable integration. And as part of it, lots of policy and regulatory frameworks have been set up, where the hybrid energy storage, wind, solar projects is one example where the regulatory barrier has been removed. Now, there is still a mental barrier which is still remaining with the tendering authorities, where people tend to sort of just compare the prices of these hybrid projects with a vanilla solar or vanilla wind project, and they still want the prices to keep on coming down, without realizing that when they are building the plain vanilla solar or wind project, there are still those costs, but those costs are getting passed on to the rest of the system. And this is an area where I would like to work closely with NREL, World Bank and others to try to make that clear, especially when we do a lot of these system studies. Otherwise, there are so many studies being done, which is just ending up resulting in delaying on action rather than taking a decision. Most of the policymakers are just waiting for results of one more study, and if they don't like it, they would wait for one more study. So this is an area where we have to really now step up, especially 2021, now post-COVID. We cannot anymore delay implementation of these projects because especially now we are also expecting the battery manufacturing mission to take off with a goal of 50 gigawatt hour. And if we really have to attract the investment and make India a destination for R&D and manufacturing, then we cannot keep on delaying talking about demand as coming in next 10 years. Unless the demand is being shown in next 12 to 18 months, we are not going to get the manufacturing investments. Now, the global trends are very promising, as a number of speakers mentioned, starting with Dr. Murugan as well as Sarin, where there are significant technical improvements happening, improving in energy density, in cycle life, the scaling up of manufacturing, which is resulting in the cost reduction. And this trend is going to continue. But with this cost reduction, where we have already seen more than 90% cost reduction in last 10 years, there are many applications where right now energy storage is cost effective, and we need to focus on those applications, those locations, and try to start scaling up the applications. And the cost reductions will keep on happening the way we have seen it for solar or other technologies. So overall, IESA expects the India energy storage stationary market to be more than 225 gigawatt hour in next 7 years, starting with 2020. And for e-mobility also, we feel there are similar issues there, where I think there are certain segments where e-mobility is already profitable, and we are seeing many commercial industrial customers paying more close attention to this. So we have launched this EV Adopter Circle as an initiative in collaboration with ESL to try to bring accelerate this adoption. And there we expect maybe next 5-7 years, the market is slightly smaller than stationary storage with around 150 gigawatt hour. But beyond 23-24, the market growth rate will be faster. So by 2030, probably between say 2020 to 2030 as a decade, both e-mobility and stationary could have an equal market size. So to support and accelerate this growth, IESA has launched series of initiatives over the last 8 years. And again, some of you are aware of this. If not, you can visit the IESA website to get more details. But especially we are proud of the work which we have done on manufacturing, where we started working with Niti Aayog in 2016 to bring focus on R&D and manufacturing. And we have not just sort of worked on creating the policy framework, but on the other hand side, we have also partnered with groups like IMA and try to work on building the capacity on the manufacturing side in India. As a result, we are now seeing more than 20 companies are investing not just in cell manufacturing, but also in various component manufacturing, such as lithium hydroxide or synthetic graphite or other binder pitch materials into India. So this is the area where there is a tremendous scope, and Europe has shown it, especially in last 2-3 years, that you can actually build a domestic battery manufacturing industry and compete with China. If you have not monitored the data, and Patrick shared some of it, in last 1 year, actually, Europe has overtaken China in terms of the penetration of the new electric vehicles sold in last 1 year. And that is attracting huge investments in Europe for battery manufacturing, whereas compared to the 50 gigawatt hour manufacturing, what we are aiming in India in next 5 years, Europe is looking at getting more than 1,000 gigawatt hour of manufacturing at the same time. So the scale is changing, but still I think getting to that 50 gigawatt hour would be a good starting point for India. And with the kind of innovation and research happening with various universities as well as on the private sector, we can always scale it up from there. If we keep on just waiting, then we will be just another importer, similar to what has happened on solar or cell phone area. One other area I would like to emphasize, which we need to pay attention to, is testing, because there are so many varieties of lithium-ion batteries. We are already starting to see second life lithium-ion batteries being sold, or there are cases where we are seeing that some of the companies are selling some of the rejects from their existing automotive contracts at a really cheap rate, and people are buying those and putting those into battery packs and selling it to customers who are not aware of some of the differences. So this is the area where we as an industry need to pay very close attention, and we need support also from regulators in terms of enforcing some of the safety and policy standards, because without that we are just sitting on a ticking time bomb. We have seen already, even in Korea, many recalls happening or fires happening. So this is something which we just cannot afford at this stage of industry. We are just starting to get customer sentiment going positively in this. So again, all of the technology companies, also the buyers such as utilities, need to pay attention and get away from the fascination for L1 bids, and make sure that when they are setting up the bidding and standards, they are paying attention to the quality and some of these other parameters and do apples to apples comparison. So for this, we are spending a lot of time on building the skill development and capacity through IESA Academy. And again, we always partner with ISUW for such collaborations. So to conclude, I think the policy framework over the last 5 years has been moving in the right direction, both for stationary and e-mobility in India. Overall, the technologies are showing cost reduction curve, which is even faster than the cost reduction curve exhibited by solar industry. There are many storage technologies. It is not just about lithium-ion batteries, but lithium-ion batteries is clearly climbing the scale up much faster than most of the other technologies, where it is expected that by 2025, we'll have more than 3,000 gigawatt hour of manufacturing available for different types of lithium-ion batteries. But there is still opportunity for other gravity-based thermal or flow batteries and other technologies. So IESA has set a vision that we don't want India to just become a market, because that will anyway happen now. But we want India to become a global hub for R&D and manufacturing of advanced energy storage and EV systems for the coming decade. So again, I thank you all for contributing your knowledge and the work which you are doing in this, because this is an area which you cannot do alone. I think all of us need to come together and proceed on this area. So with this, I would like to once again thank all the panelists for their insights. I believe Dr. Maithani may have had to leave. So I would like to hand it back to the ISGF team for closing the session.
Thank you very much, Dr. Valavalkar, for steering this session so luminously and bringing the best out of the panel. I'd like to thank Dr. Maithani, who's not in our midst now, but for chairing this session and for his significant remarks. And once again, thank you to all panelists for your meaningful insights.